Hi, I'm Steve Costello from Green Mountain Power, and with Terry J, I'm one of the organizers of the Gift of Life Marathon. I'm sure you know what it is, but for that handful of people who don't know, the Gift of Life Marathon is an annual blood drive in Rutland. We actually set the national record for a one-day blood drive back in 2013, collecting 2,350 pints. And this year we're doing a 4-day drive coming up December 7th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. December 7th in Fairhaven, and the other 3 days here in Rutland. And you can sign up for any of those days at redcrossblood.org or by calling Red Cross 1-800-RED-CROSS. With me today is our ambassador for this year's Gift of Life Marathon, Stephanie Shafer. Most of you probably know much of Stephanie's story, but probably don't know all of it. And we're here to talk about Steph's story and the importance of donating blood. Steph, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
You too.
We're going to get into your story a bit in some detail, but let's just start with before you became known to most Rutlanders. You were just a typical college kid, right?
Yeah, just a typical college kid. I was born and raised here in Rutland, Vermont. I had gone away for a few years in college thinking, that's what I wanted, was to find somewhere new to live, but again, surprised myself. I think as it happens to a lot of kids that age, you start realizing what's so good at home, and I just found myself moving back home to Vermont and, enjoying everything Vermont has to offer, hiking every day, spending time with family, enjoying the calm, peaceful life that can be found here. So yeah, it was just a typical life.
Yeah. And you were just about to graduate from college?
Yeah.
Where would you go to school?
I had just transferred to Castleton University. I had taken a semester off to enjoy being back home, and then had gone back into it and was really loving Castleton and was really, really close to graduation. Okay.
So for those of folks who are watching who don't know your story, I'll just give a quick thumbnail and really ask you to describe it. Stephanie really was cast into a really bizarre world in a lot of ways, both physically and emotionally, and having to deal with all of the challenges that she's going to describe in a very public way. Why don't you just give us the thumbnail description of what happened to you and how this all came to be?
So my family and I and another family that we were all friends with, I remember we were just sitting around watching TV. We'd all gotten together one time and we decided that we all wanted to go on vacation together, and we were tossing around ideas, and we decided on going to the Bahamas. The pictures that we found online just seemed too tempting to resist. So we went there and we signed up for the tour that goes around the island. It's Exuma's most well-known attraction, I guess. It's the swimming pigs of Exuma. It's a very strange destination, but we're like, why not? So we went out, and 3 minutes into a half-day excursion, the boat ended up exploding right beneath my seat. And because I think there were people just behind us that happened to capture video, it went not only from being just a traumatic event, it went from being a very publicized traumatic event. So, even while I was laying unconscious, the attention from media and everything was starting. And I think that actually turned out to be a good thing, because it's given me a way to express some of the pain at the beginning when I didn't really know what to do with it. But yeah, it changed my life in probably every way possible. It changed my family's life in every way possible. That typical life I talked of changed to one of very unknown everything. So.
Right. Now you and your mom were both injured.
Yeah.
People who have heard a lot about your story, I hear this all the time. Stephanie lost her legs, but when we were talking earlier, you said that was the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Explain what you mean by that.
You're right. I mean, every article that was wrote at the beginning, it said student or 22-year-old or however they put it, said loses both legs. But when you're in the hospital, you're like, I remember thinking that it was what had happened, but there was so much more that wasn't covered. In fact, that would have been much easier to handle if the other stuff hadn't happened. I had broken my back, which caused paralysis from a spinal cord injury, which to me was what should have been the title of those articles, because it was the most life-changing for me. But there was also a brain injury. There was injuries to many of my organs. I had gone into kidney failure. I had broken what felt like every bone in my body. There was a lot more to it, for sure.
Right. And you were unconscious for a good deal of this initial time.
Yeah.
How long were you in the hospital, and how long was it before you were even aware of what was going on around you?
I was comatose for 4 weeks. The process of waking up is a very slow one. So once I could think a little bit more clearly, they knew that that was the time. I'm not sure how much time had passed. I'm not sure if it was days or a week or so. But then they told me just of my legs. And then it felt like in the weeks and even months that followed, we kept finding more out. So even the doctors didn't know at first all the extent of everything. So it was a process. And it was a 5-month-long hospital stay total.
Wow. And this was in Florida?
I started in Florida, and then when I was well enough, I was transferred to Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Okay. And in that process, you eventually learned that you had to receive a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I actually don't think I learned of that until I started working with the Gift of Life Marathon in 2019. That's when the idea of it sort of, I'm like, how did I not think of this? And we went through my medical records, and I started talking to my family, and they told me, oh yeah, you received blood donations every day for a very long time. When you went to my records, it just said massive transfusion protocol. I think it was just as much as they could give me as quickly as they could, and that is what saved my life.
Wow. There were a lot of people who, the day of the explosion, became heroes. Some of your family members, strangers, doctors, nurses, etc. Blood donors, as you mentioned, were part of that. What did it feel like as you learned that maybe dozens, I don't know what the number is obviously, but a large number of people had helped keep you alive?
It's really hard to explain. I mean, the doctors and the surgeons and the nurses, you appreciate them so much, but in a way you also know they're just doing their job, the one that they trained for and are prepared for, and that's what they want to be doing. And so the ICU nurses, heroes of mine, they went in above and beyond for me too. The surgeons, heroes, but family and acting in ways they didn't even know that they could, and then strangers, I mean, that's a whole different feeling. There's the strangers that were there in the moment, saving my life that day on the boat, but then there's the thought of blood donors who have no idea who they're donating to, and that's just a more surreal feeling to appreciate so much more.
Yeah, I heard you speak at the Paramount, obviously, as the kickoff for this year's blood drive, and you actually talked about feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Why was that?
I don't think I felt guilty at the very, with them saving my life, because, all you can feel is appreciation for that. But I came to understand what a gift it is, and then to hear that sometimes there's shortages, as there is right now. And in that speech that you were talking about, I was saying how I once again, not that long ago, needed more blood donations. And I had seen the people in this Vermont state showing up and taking the time out of their day and literally rolling up their sleeves and donating their own blood. And I felt like I had been given so much, and I had been through so much, but I was just really wanting to get past the point of needing help. And that last surgery, needing it again in that way and understanding where it came from, I just was thinking, is someone not going to get it now because I'm taking more than I deserve, is how I felt. But the guilt passes, and you just appreciate it.
Right. Now, this was relatively recently, this last surgery, and hopefully it truly is the last surgery. Yeah. How many surgeries have you had, and what, I know the number is crazy high,
yeah, it's crazy high.
Why so many? What have they had to do?
I think it's somewhere between 40 and 42 surgeries in the 3 years. it's hard for even me to understand why there's been so many. I think because my injuries were so traumatic, and it was truly just a life-saving job at the beginning, that they did what they could do to keep me alive. And since then, we've had to keep doing revisions, or if there's been a complication, it's required surgery. Unfortunately, the amputations that I started with, my body couldn't keep up with that in a way, I guess. I just kept having wounds and infections, and so we kept trying to save what we could, but eventually having to make decisions to do another amputation. So it's just been trying to catch up with the trauma of it all, I feel like, for a very long time.
Yep. And for many of those, obviously, not just when they saved your life in the initial days, but many of these other surgeries have required blood donations as well. You talked about it at the Paramount, this most recent surgery, and the blood that you received after that. And you said something to the effect of, it didn't technically save your life, but it gave you your life back.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I meant that I had been staying as focused as I could be, and just making plans for the surgeries and doing everything that I could. Every time I had to heal, I went into it with not only a positive mindset, but trying to be as healthy as I could be overall, and doing everything in my power that I could do. But this surgery, I couldn't come back from on my own. It was too much on my body, and I could have done everything that I could have done, and I wouldn't have been able to leave that hospital without those blood donations. And not only did it let me leave the hospital that time, but knowing that that was the surgery that was going to be the last one, to be able to get the donations and then leave and have the weight off my shoulders of, I have no more ahead of me, and to really just be able to fully embrace life. It was just the gift of life again, just in a different meaning.
That's great. If you're just joining us, I'm Steve Costello from Green Mountain Power, and we're talking about the upcoming Gift of Life Marathon with Stephanie Schafer, who is the ambassador for the drive this year. She's been doing this now for 3 years. This is the third year that she's been helping us out, and has had a huge impact on blood donations in Rutland County and across Vermont. And we want to encourage you to participate this year. If you have never donated blood before, this is the drive to try it. It's a huge event. It's fun. You'll meet some great people, and it's not going to be nearly as much of an ordeal as you think it is. It's a really simple process, and it's virtually painless. The drive is December 7th in Fairhaven, and December 15th, 16th, and 17th here in Rutland. And you can make appointments at redcrossblood.org or by calling 1-800-RED-CROSS. I want to get back to the donation part, receiving the blood itself. When you spoke at the Paramount, again, you talked about it giving you life, even though it technically wasn't saving your life, it was like giving life back to you.
Yeah.
What has this whole thing been like for you, as far as being all of a sudden a public person who's out here promoting blood? I remember you telling me at one point that you used to get nervous just speaking in front of class in college.
Yeah.
And you've really, blossomed. You're giving speeches to, last week to the town clerks from all over New England. You spoke at the Paramount. You've talked at schools. You've talked at Green Mountain Power to all of our employees, as you know. What's it been like for you to make that jump from kind of an anonymous person, a typical college kid, to somebody who has been thrust into this public eye?
I think it just makes it mean something. I lost a lot that day, and I remember one time I was in Cambridge at that point, and I just remember thinking that I had to find a way to make this mean something more. Everybody kept saying there was going to be some purpose, and for a while you don't believe them, but then you realize that if you want there to be a purpose, you kind of have to make it. It could just be something terrible that happened to me, or it could be something that I used to create a life that I still wanted to be a part of, a life that I still enjoyed, a life that still had meaning. It was different and changed, but just as good as before. So it's just been making me grow in ways I never knew that I was even capable of. It's pushed me out of my comfort zone, but I think when you're outside of your comfort zone, that's when you see like, this is what you can do, and you're not as afraid, or it's just meeting goals that you had never even thought to make. And when you're just searching for some way to find purpose, this is how I've stumbled upon not just the speaking and things that have been for myself, but through things like Gift of Life Marathon, where I would have never thought I'd be, working with blood drives, and yet this has come to be such a huge part of my life and means so much to me. So
That's great. So those are almost silver linings, those things. Have there been, and it seems weird even asking you this, but have there been other silver linings in this whole, huge ordeal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think, the disability community, you think you don't want to become disabled, but the silver lining of that is the people that you meet. I've met the most incredible people, both in the disability community and outside of it. The families of people who have children who are disabled, the business owners that use their wheelchair, the fathers, the mothers, everything that you think isn't possible, they're all doing. And so your definition of it completely changes. The places we've gotten to go, the people we've gotten to meet, just the experiences. I think especially when there was a time where you thought you weren't going to survive, life almost becomes more about experiences and moments than it does anything else. So every experience we don't take for granted, we just appreciate and are so grateful for, and we wouldn't have had them without all of these challenges and all of that.
Yeah. How about within your family? This has, I've been close enough to this story because of the blood drive work that we've done together and some of the speeches, that I know that you've had a really amazing support network. Your mom has been there, virtually every step of the way with you when she was injured herself.
Yeah.
Has your relationship within your family evolved a lot? Has it changed dramatically?
Yeah, I'm super grateful, because I think something like this could have really torn a family apart, but we've just grown closer. Me, my siblings, both of my parents, my grandparents, everybody shows up when you need them, and you see the importance of family.
Yeah. In your case, it's really obvious why you needed so much blood. And you mentioned feeling guilty because there might be a shortage and you were taking blood that somebody else might need. Well, right now, there is a critical shortage, as you are well aware. There is less than a half a day supply of blood in New England right now and nationally, which means on any given day, a hospital might run out of blood, or they may have to rush blood from one location to another to meet the needs. And thankfully, your need right now is gone.
Yes.
But what would you tell someone who's watching this, who's never made the effort, never signed up to give blood, is afraid of needles, all the reasons that people give for not donating blood? What would you tell those folks?
I think that the need for donated blood is much more common and frequent than you might think. That's why I wanted to share about my surgery, because it's not just saving lives. It's not just if someone's had a severely traumatic injury. It's for people who are battling cancer. It's for people who might need it for some treatment. It's for so many reasons. And so we know that it's maybe not the perfect weather outside every day right now, and maybe it's hard to leave the house, but I will say that when I started doing this in 2019, I think the first year was, that's when I was having a lot of issues myself going on. But when you show up to a blood drive, especially the Gift of Life Marathon, you leave feeling so good. Every time, it was the most uplifting atmosphere. It's just pretty indescribable. I don't know what you think, but it makes you leave feeling good, not only if you're donating, but even just being there. And so I think especially it's been a tough few years for all of us, so I think it's something that we all might need, is just to
Yeah,
go.
no, I
do
think
this.
that's absolutely right. And, it's always, since we started doing this, I don't know, 13 or 14 years ago, it's definitely my favorite week of the year.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the reasons you just described. And I'll just throw out there, one of the things, the benefits of this, the silver linings, I guess, of your situation has been a lot of other people have gotten to meet you and hear you. And this may sound funny coming, towards you, but there are a lot of people who really feel blessed to have met you and to hear your story. I know when you spoke at GMP, we hired Stephanie to come talk to all of our employees about safety and grit and determination and working through problems. And she spoke to all of our employees in 4 separate groups across the state. And we have some of the toughest people on the face of the earth, linemen who will go out in any kind of weather, and I can tell you that they will tell you they got nothing on Steph. She is as tough as any one of them, and it's been really a pleasure getting to know you and to see how you're handling this. Has it surprised you the way you have grown and the way you have responded to all this adversity? And I know there have been days where you probably weren't the picture of strength that we see most of the time, but overall it's a pretty amazing thing that you've accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely surprising. You're right, there were a few days at the beginning, probably more than a few days, where I couldn't help but show the pain that I was feeling, but those days, this become fewer and fewer, I think, because I'm surprised about it. I definitely would not have imagined this life or the person I've become if someone had told me everything I was going to go through. And I think I think about that a lot, but it just pushes you, I think, to become someone new, and you just take it one day at a time and one moment and one challenge at a time, and somehow you get through it all.
So what's next for Stephanie Schaefer?
The book we've been talking a lot about, that'll be released in February of 2022. I'm really excited about that, and we're, possibly working on getting it turned into a movie as well, which would be a dream come true. And I think once the book is done, we'll start focusing on, more projects. But that's what's next for me right now, and that's what I'm focused on, yeah.
Are you ready to say what the title is going to be, or do you know?
Yeah, so the title is going to be, we just chose a subtitle. I'm going to make sure I do it right. We were choosing this yesterday with the publisher. It is Without Warning, a memoir of loss, change, and acceptance of both. We're tweaking it a little bit. I'm getting feedback in the next few days.
Wow,
so we'll
that's
see.
great. That's great. So that'll be out in February.
Yes.
All right. One of the things that I think the public probably hasn't had the opportunity to really understand fully is how this has kind of created a career for you. And that's a weird thing to say, but you've found a new purpose, and just as an outsider looking at what you're doing, and that purpose is really trying to inspire others and help others see that, despite calamity, life doesn't have to end, and that there are silver linings, and that there's ways to move forward. I've seen you speak, as I've referred to earlier, to line workers and kids in high school and little kids. What's it like going into a room full of 2nd or 3rd graders and telling your story? How do you approach it? What does it feel like, and what do you get out of that?
I definitely approach it much differently than I do with anything else. It actually takes me more time, I think, and more thought, because you want to get what you're trying to say across, but I don't want to scare the kids. I want to, say everything delicately, in a way that they can understand, where I don't, feel like I'm not talking down to them or anything like that. But it's honestly such a good feeling. They always have the most raw questions, and they're so good every time. And I really love to do it because I think it's for them, for kids, I think it's usually showing that it's okay to be different. I think it's showing that these kids are going to have hard things happen in their lives too, and it's showing them, hopefully they'll remember that they can get through it. But also I just think that hope that maybe I'm the first person they've seen, maybe I'm the first person they've seen in a wheelchair, maybe I'm the first person they've seen with prosthetic legs, and the next time they see that, it won't be as shocking for them. And so I think that's a really important thing.
Okay. What types of things do they ask you?
Such innocent things. Can you ride a bike? Do you sleep with your legs on? Yeah, that was a funny one. Do you sleep? I'm like, no, I take them off. And they're like so confused about that. But yeah, good questions.
Interesting. Okay. So again, the Gift of Life Marathon's coming up in just a few days. I know your mom is going to be volunteering as well, and you will be greeting people on the last day at the blood drive at the CSJ, former CSJ gym, now part of the Rutland Rec Center. What do you, what final message do you want to leave people with? Again, they're thinking about it, maybe they'll donate. How do you get them over that finish line?
I think it's everything we've said. You know, there's a real shortage right now, and that's terrifying to think about. I think remembering that it can be anyone at all that might need it, and it happens usually when you least expect it. So I just hope, you know, that we just get out there, and we've had such good luck in the Gift of Life Marathon before, and I'm just really hoping that this year is another success. So.
Yeah, great. Great. Well, thank you for all you're doing. I do think that the incredible silver lining for the public has been just the ability to be inspired by you. And it sounds funny maybe to you at your age, but people definitely, I know people from all walks of life who have followed your story. Maybe they've met you, maybe they haven't, maybe they've just seen it in the newspaper or on television, but there are people who are not only getting inspired about donating blood, but overcoming their own challenges and realizing that, you know, the darkest day doesn't have to be just dark. There can be positives that come out of them, and that life goes on and you can continue on. We'll just want to close with urging you, the viewer, right now to make that appointment. Call 1-800-RED-CROSS or visit redcrossblood.org. You can sign up. There's all kinds of information on the Red Cross website about eligibility. If you've never donated, I would encourage you to look at the eligibility section, because there are some specific rules. Don't want you to go through the big process of signing up and getting there and going through the health history if you are on certain drugs, for example. Certain medicines will prevent you if you're on a blood thinner, for example, or if you've traveled to certain countries. Go to the website, check the eligibility section. It will tell you largely whether you're eligible. And then if you have questions, you can call 800-RED-CROSS and they can answer those questions again. Also encourage you to go to the Gift of Life Marathon Facebook page. There's all kinds of information about Stephanie, about the blood drive. Share those, comment. It helps us spread the word even further and will help us make our goal. And we are right now quite a way from our goal. The second day of the drive in Rutland is full, but day 1 in Fairhaven, we have dozens and dozens of slots open. Day 3, we have dozens of slots open. And in day 4, we have probably 200 slots available right now for appointments. Walk-ins are going to be discouraged. We really want people to make an appointment and then keep that appointment to help save a life like Stephanie's. Thanks for watching, and go visit www.redcrossblood.org. Thanks for watching.